Hi everyone, Dr. Pope here. This screencast will introduce you to qualitative research methods. By the end of this screencast, you will know a bit about the history of qualitative research in academia, be familiar with the meaning of the term naturalistic inquiry, and determine major differences between qualitative and quantitative approaches to research. Qualitative research began first in the fields of anthropology and sociology, where researchers attempted to understand the ins and outs of culture and intricacies of people's lives. Think about anthropologists in the 1970s going and doing fieldwork in remote areas of other countries, attempting to learn about the cultures of various peoples. They used qualitative methods to gather data and write detailed descriptive reports about these peoples. Now, methods like these are used in a wide variety of disciplines, where researchers attempt to understand various phenomena in a holistic way. While this is not as prevalent as it was decades ago, qualitative researchers in the social sciences and other fields have been met with scorn, confusion, and possibly condescension regarding the quality and rigor of qualitative methods as opposed to quantitative methodologies. While I believe this stems from misunderstandings and misconceptions of the quality, rigor, and merit of qualitative methods, Denson and Lincoln explained that the challenges to qualitative research are many. Qualitative researchers are called journalists or soft scientists. Their work is termed unscientific or only exploratory or subjective. It is called criticism and not theory, or it is interpreted politically as a disguised version of Marxism or secular humanism. These resistances reflect an uneasy awareness that the traditions of qualitative research commit the researcher to a critique of positivist or post-positivist projects. The experimental positivist sciences, such as physics, chemistry, economics, and psychology, for example, are often seen as the crowning achievement of Western civilization, and in their practices, it is assumed that truth can transcend opinion and personal bias. Qualitative research is seen as an assault on this tradition, whose adherents often retreat into a value-free objectivist science model to defend their position. However, the benefits to qualitative research and research methodologies transcend this bias. Qualitative research offers a view to a phenomenon or research problem unattainable by positivist quantitative methods. The word qualitative implies an emphasis on the qualities of entities and on the process and meanings that are not experimentally examined or measured, if measured at all, in terms of quantity, amount, intensity, or frequency. In contrast to quantitative methodologies, qualitative researchers seek answers to questions that stress how social experience is created and given meaning, answers that are not available through quantitative methodologies. Qualitative research is also called naturalistic inquiry. Qualitative researchers do not attempt to conduct research from an objectivist standpoint. This means that qualitative research uses interpretive, naturalistic methods to collect data. Qualitative researchers approach research and data collection with the assumption that in order to understand human experience and the natural world, we must include human understandings and experiences within our data, and these are typically more subjective than objective in nature. As explained by Erlandson et al., the naturalistic paradigm, valuing as it does the separate realities that have been created by individuals, must also value the way these realities are responded to and the ways in which they enable individuals to respond productively to their environments. In other words, data generation in qualitative research works within natural settings and uses methods that intend to capture the participants' own understandings of their experiences. Qualitative research is complex, dynamic, and interdisciplinary in nature. Denson and Lincoln support this intricacy in their definition of qualitative research. Activities that place the researcher within the world they observe and consist of a set of interpretive material practices that make the world visible. Qualitative researchers study things in their natural settings, attempting to make sense of or interpret phenomena in terms of the meanings people attribute to them. To try to understand a specific phenomenon, qualitative researchers use a variety of methods to generate data. These methods collect data focused on human experience and the meanings individuals create from those experiences. A qualitative researcher stresses the socially constructed nature of reality, the intimate relationship between the researcher and what is studied, and the situational constraints that shape inquiry. Common qualitative data generation methods include interviews, focus groups, observations, and the collection of documents and/or artifacts. In order to conduct qualitative research, a paradigm shift is necessary. Researchers cannot approach qualitative research from a quantitative standpoint, just like researchers cannot approach quantitative research from a qualitative standpoint. For instance, instead of describing variables in qualitative research, we work to understand phenomena. We don't, quote, measure something or use, quote, instrumentation in our research. In terms of reliability and validity, we typically don't use these terms, but strive to ensure quality and rigor of research through the establishment of trustworthiness. This paradigm shift begins at the way individuals approach research. Behind every research study is an assumption about the nature of reality. The term for the nature of reality is ontology, and the dictionary defines it as a branch of metaphysics concerned with the nature and relations of being, a particular theory about the nature of being or the kinds of things that have existence. Your understanding of the nature of reality is an underlying concept of any research project. The various ways researchers understand reality have been organized into methodological paradigms. Important concepts within these paradigms are ontology, answering the question, what is the nature of reality? Epistemology, answering the questions, what is valid knowledge within reality and how do we obtain knowledge? What is the relationship between the knowledge and the knower? And methodology, answering the question, how do we gather knowledge about the world? These questions all have answers to them within and outside the context of research. So, we are all philosophers in a sense. Think about these questions. You probably already have answers for them. Maybe your answers come from what you know about education, religion, or other aspects of your personal worldview. So think of a paradigm as a net of sorts that includes ontology, epistemology, and methodology. The dictionary defines a paradigm as a cognitive framework, and that's what each of these are. Each paradigm followed in research has its own assumptions about ontology and epistemology and the methodologies that relate. While quantitative research follows an objectivist paradigm, qualitative research often follows paradigms that are more interpretive in nature. Such paradigms ask the researcher to make use of the assumptions and interpretations they themselves bring to any research project. Additionally, which methodological paradigm you follow will determine the theoretical framework of any study you design. According to Denzin and Lincoln, there are four major paradigms within qualitative research: the positivist and post-positivist paradigm, the constructivist interpretive paradigm, the critical paradigm, and the feminist post-structural paradigm. Each of these paradigms follows assumptions outlined in relativist ontologies, relativist ontology being the belief in the existence of multiple realities constructed from the understandings of individual people, and interpretive epistemologies, the belief that there is an interaction between individuals and what is known about the world, and that these interactions shape our understandings of the world. Methodologically, qualitative research contrasts quantitative research in 5 important ways. Some qualitative researchers do work within a positivist paradigm. However, while they use similar statistical measures, methods, and documents as a way of locating groups of subjects within larger populations, they will seldom report their findings in terms of the kinds of complex statistical measures or methods to which quantitative researchers are drawn. Qualitative researchers see positivist methods as one of many ways to understand aspects of society or the social world. They are no better or worse than other methods. They just tell a different kind of story. Qualitative researchers argue that research methods such as interviewing and observation allow for a closer examination of individual points of view regarding a particular experience. To them, quantitative researchers are seldom able to capture their subjects' perspectives because they have to rely on more remote, inferential empirical methods, and materials. Qualitative researchers are more likely to confront and come up against constraints of the everyday social world. They see this world in action and embed their findings within it. Qualitative researchers are different from quantitative researchers because quantitative researchers abstract from the world and seldom study it directly. Qualitative researchers believe that rich descriptions of the social world are valuable, whereas quantitative researchers are less concerned with such detail. Quantitative researchers are deliberately unconcerned with rich descriptions because such detail interrupts the process of developing generalizations. There are a wide variety of methodologies, the overall design or plan for a study, in qualitative research, but there are some that are more common than others. 5 common methodologies in qualitative research are basic or descriptive research, narrative research, case study research, ethnographic research, and grounded theory research. Within each of these methodologies are methods that educational researchers use to collect data. 3 of the most common are interviews, observations, and the use of documents. For interviews, researchers will typically create an interview guide, audio record the interview, transcribe the interview, and then analyze the transcript. During an observation, researchers will typically take field notes and write reflective memos on what they've seen and heard. These 2 texts are the primary forms of data for this method. Finally, researchers will use documents and artifacts as data. This can include text documents, electronic documents, or artifacts like images and clothing. As a side note, audiovisual materials are a growing source of data in qualitative research. As you learn more about how to conduct qualitative research, remember the necessary paradigm shift away from quantitative conceptions of what makes good research. Look at the different terminology that's used. It'll be quite different from what is used in quantitative research. I was trained to say data generation rather than data collection for qualitative research because the term collection implies an objective existence of data that the researcher collects, whereas the term generation recognizes the fact that the researcher's methods and behavior are integral to the nature and quality of the data gathered. This is an important conceptual difference between qualitative and quantitative approaches to research. Personally, I find qualitative research intriguing, fun, and stimulating due to the interactions between the researcher and participants, as well as working through the types of data generated for qualitative studies. Qualitative research has much to offer educational research.